Hey, Vox here. Today we're gonna go through the 50 most memorable MUT cards of all time. Now, I don't know if they're gonna be memorable to you. I don't know how long you've been playing MUT itself, Madden. Myself, I started MUT in 15, was always a franchise guy before that. So there are a few cards sprinkled in prior to 15, but let me know in the comments other cards. I was assured these are very memorable cards when I got information on them. So let's start it out. Number 50 is Madden 20's Tressway. You're like, what? A punter? Okay, why a punter on the top 50 list? I assure you this is the only special teamer on the list. Tressway is here for one reason only. He was the quarterback in a Madden 20 Madden Bowl and salary cap because he handed the ball off faster on certain runs. And it just became kind of a living meme in the community about this card being a guy's quarterback with how unbalanced Madden 20 was. So it lives on. It's very memorable to this day for that reason. Number 49, Madden 20's 2 Elroy Hirsch. Now, there's another card much higher up on this list from Madden 22, and Elroy Hirsch was one of like the only guys that could kind of sort of counter him, and even then he wasn't like, you know, foolproof or anything at all. He still got beat. It was funny because he was like out of position too. He was like at defensive end for some reason because he kind of played it and instead of his natural position on offense. But Elroy Hirsch, somebody that I've been asking for in game for years. I wish they really animated him. His nickname was Crazy Legs because the way he ran. They didn't do that. They took the lazy way out just like they took with like, you know, people's like face scans and stuff of legends just being super lazy. So it's funny with like, you know, a legendary a guy that they haven't had in the game before. They brought him in and just completely botched it, both position and animation style. It's just, you know, it's just encapsulating EA in that sense, but overall it was a solid defensive end. Number 48 is Madden 15's Bo Jackson. He was out of a present that year. Now, multiple reasons why he's memorable. Not only it was like the best card on the field for a while, over 1 million coins, great running back, insane in 15, but also like the present debacle that happened in 15 was interesting because like back then you can auction presents. After 15, when like leaks got out about what was in what present and stuff, they made him unauctionable, probably for the best. But Bo Jackson, very memorable for many reasons to me. Madden 21, Isaiah Simmons's Ghost card. Now, Madden 21 is a year that I feel like there's not that many memorable cards, at least on old gen where I played it, right? There was next gen where everybody was in mud and we ended up shifting over that in 22. Luckily, 22 was a little bit better on the movement stick, but Madden 21 was like the last year, unless of course you're on old gen still, where I played on old gen and it was basically arcade mode. Back and forth, like you were like ping-ponging back and forth, covering a lot of routes on the field, which obviously you can still do in 23, but Madden 21's Isaiah Simmons came out and was absolutely crazy fast, tall, picking things up, jumping, grabbing balls way behind his head. Exactly what you expected of a tall user, and I feel like he epitomized the last year of the crazy users for me. But, you know, you can still do that in 23 if you're still on old gen. Number 46 on the list is Madden 16's Dez Bryant. Now, he was a wide receiver, but back in Madden 16, you could line up wide receivers at tight end. It's something they got rid of going into 17. So, like, that year when, like, in salary cap, you'd always look for mismatches. So, I threw, like, Dez Bryant golden ticket at tight end. And then he was such a mismatch for linebackers right there. Like, just streaking up the seam. You know, you had the big Odell catches in 16 and stuff. Dez Bryant was an absolute menace that year and was great for the game, I feel like. Number 45 was Madden 23. So, a current card. Out of position, Julius Peppers at safety. Now, the 23 meta a lot was tight, especially that that route that went up the middle of the field against tight, either from the left or the right, and like a lot of players were able to just run past you, right? Because zone itself was so bad with the ability of guys just run straight past you. So you knew you were getting run past if they just ran a streak. But luckily, Julius Peppers at free safety was so tall. How tall was he? He was so tall he could reach up and tickle an Angel's ball sack. He was so tall that he basically picked the ball off over top because he could get the animations because he was in the perfect position, like trailing the wide receiver. So he was basically my entire defense against tight guys. He got so many picks on so many balls that are able to be thrown against most other safeties at the time. Now there's probably some other taller safeties right there that can play it similarly, but Julius Peppers, incredible. Madden 23, it was very height based and he saved me a lot in my drop zone scheme. Obviously not as great in like say man coverage. All right, number 44, Madden 21's Rich Gannon. Now Rich Gannon had a terrible throw release. If you recall, they remaneuvered throw releases in 20. They updated a little at 21. Gannon, like surprisingly, surprisingly was not that great of a quarterback until you looked at his abilities. Madden's been very an ability-based game for a couple years now, and 21 Rich Gannon, I feel like for like a month and a half, 2 months, was the only quarterback in the game that got Gunslinger Hot Route Master, which was, you know, the style of the time, much like an onion on your belt. Rich Gannon, like, he was like everywhere, and everybody was using him because he was like the only guy with the 2 best abilities, but his throw release was so slow and so painful. I just remember feeling like, all right, the blitz is coming, and it's not out. It's gonna be spiked in the ground, but you could have gone right. But Rich Gannon was that dude for a while because of those abilities. I feel like the trade-off was more than worth it, and I feel like a lot of people agree with me. Number 43 on the list is Madden 15's MUT Master, Richard Sherman. Madden 15 was a game where we had rocket catching and guys would just basically able to high point and throw it with like pass leads that got away from your team. So Richard Sherman as MUT Master statted out incredibly well, clearly, right? Beginning of the game, 99 overall. Tall, which was huge back in the day. I mean, it's still huge, but there was a few years there, starting in 16, where tallness didn't really matter as much, but we'll get into that a little bit later. 15, Richard Sherman, tall, fast, freak of nature. Obviously, that was back when like MUT Master was actually MUT Master and very difficult to complete. It was actually a much more hard year, but Sherman didn't necessarily like dominate as much as some of the other higher cards. He was pretty memorable, but not enough to break the top 40. Number 42 is Madden 20's Joe Thomas. You're like, oh, an offensive lineman? That's crazy. Right? I got more coming, but this one, he's only here because he was insanely overpowered for a couple weeks, right? He was a legend card released. This was back when Nasty Streak would work out of position, so you could put Joe Thomas at tight end, motion him out, and then he just smack guys and put him on the ground. Now, it's funny, back then it was overpowered, and you know, Madden 20 was a big running year. Madden 23, we have that ability right now. Gronk's got the same thing with activated Vanguard, and it's just like, you know, purposely put out, hasn't been changed. EA knew what they were doing. We all grinded. Luckily, you know, the Gronk was a free card we could have grind for during season 2. Like, if you didn't get it, then it's sad because he's an incredibly effective tight end and clearly crazy overpowered. If they had to nerf it in Madden 20, which to be fair, Madden 20 was a bigger running year, much easier to run than 23, but they had to nerf it. It's probably overpowered and probably shouldn't be in the game, but Joe Thomas, they ended up putting it. You could just put it at tackle, which did effectively nerf Nasty Streak right there. Number 41, Walter Payton's out of position card in Madden 25 at quarterback. Madden 25 was a very heavy run year, especially with the quarterback. I got another one on this list higher up. Again, Madden 25, a little bit before my time where I played MUT. I was a franchise guy, but in MUT, there was a big focus around quarterback running. Quarterback rap was incredibly overpowered, stiff arm stuff. It was quite the year for quarterbacks. So Walter Payton right there out of position, ended up making a lot of squads. Another year, Warrior. This was specifically requested by Bengal. It was his favorite card all time, or at least up there. He told me this was that dude back in the day, again, before my time. So Vernon Davis, Combine Warrior, fast, right? What else could you ask for a tight end at the time? Number 39, Madden 12, Barry Sanders' 4-star ghost card. I don't really have a whole lot to say. Like I said, I didn't play this game, but apparently it was an incredibly powerful, memorable card that I've heard from other people. So back to the games that I've played and ones that I've used. Madden 19's Tyreek Hill card from Blitz. If you recall, Madden 19 was a big crosser year. We didn't have zone drops at the time. Basically, people just ran crosses the whole time to try and get over every single zone coverage. Madden 19, it wasn't a super heavy blitz year, but people were dropping 8 into coverage, dropping 9, trying to basically use her and take away. There were effective blitzes, don't get me wrong, in 19, but it was a much more conservative defense year. So Tyreek Hill being able to get over top and outrun users, outrun everybody. That blitz card was actually insanely great. So it was a passing year and fast guys. Like I said, height didn't matter as much for a few years after Madden 16 due to pre-canned animations. 19 was a Tyreek Hill year for him. Number 37 is Madden 25's Brian Finneran, another tall guy. We talked about the quarterback run, and then of course height mattered quite a bit too, where you could just leap over guys and grab the ball. And Finneran, being mislabeled as he was, ended up being quite the powerful card in Madden 25. Number 36, Madden 15's Jimmy Graham, another tall guy. His breast cancer awareness card. Now, BCA was a promo we had for quite a few years there when the NFL was partnering with the Susan G. Komen Foundation before they changed it to, like, you know, just all cancer awareness month now in the NFL instead of just focusing on one. So Jimmy Graham had a BCA card, and Madden 15, again, it was a rocket catch year. It was face catching. We threw the ball and then you stopped with your card, you caught it. It was very cheesy, and all you needed was a tall, tight end, and you're really mad people yelling at the game because you were able to click on and stop quicker than your opponents were. A major thing back in the day, and a major reason why they got rid of it and they started putting in pre-canned animations, because it was so unrealistic and so cheesy. You weren't playing football at that point, you were just playing high point simulator stop. But, you know, Madden 15 had nanos, so some say it was balanced. We'll talk about that more in a second. Number 35 is Madden 17's Brett Favre Ultimate Freeze. Now, I think this was the first time in my memory that Brett Favre was in the game. It was a major jaw-dropping moment for some people to get him, because much like Troy Polamalu, much like Jim Brown, who people thought wouldn't be in the game because of their stance against the NFL and whatnot, EA got sued by Jim Brown back in the day for his likeness being used in the game without compensation. So Brett Favre being in the game, an Ultimate Freeze in 17, was like, whoa. And he came out, he had some cool abilities, and it was just a cool name to add to the game. We really hadn't got, at this point, our legend selection in Madden was very limited. It's something that I criticized Madden for a few years. Them starting to add more new legends. It's kind of gotten to the certain point right now where it's gotten a lot better. Play MLB The Show 2, and Madden has significantly more legends than that. Very nice job they've done in recent years adding legends to the game, which is something that they'd suffered with for a few years there until, like, the community came together and started criticizing them. Number 34 on the list is Madden 25's Donald Penn Golden Ticket. Like I talked about Madden 25 being a run meta, Donald Penn basically had Nasty Streak built in as a golden ticket. With being how heavy he was just leveling cornerbacks out there. Just basically opened up the entire side of the field for QB runs, for runs, for that kind of thing. So being able to stack your entire side of the ball with one card, with Donald Penn Golden Ticket, Donald Penn regular out of position, and just roll over dudes was quite the meta in 25. Number 33 on the list is Madden 18's Anthony Barr. Now, really, you could say any Anthony Barr for quite some time before they nerfed linebackers in Madden 20, because of, check out my video on Ryan Shazier about how one card completely nerfed the position. But this one, the core elite, quote unquote, 95 overall, I believe is limited time. Kind of expensive is the one that I'm pointing out specifically. Tall, fast. This was back when Madden was more arcade based. You could stop and go on a dime, basically. He was just taking away entire portions of the fields, low, high, jumping, robbing people's souls, was very iconic. So any Anthony Barr card for a while there could have made this list, but I'm just gonna single out that one specifically. Number 32, maybe it's more controversial, Madden 15's Aldon Smith. He's another stand-in, not necessarily like Anthony Barr, where Anthony Barr is a stand-in for any Anthony Barr card. Madden 15's Aldon Smith is team MVP, basically a stand-in for any fast defensive lineman that was in a nano. Aldon Smith was one of the more useful ones because he had all-around great stats, but anybody fast. Back then we had a lot more budget cards. I was thinking about using a budget card that had high-end speed, but the game was awful with nanos, right? When offensive line surprisingly was worse than it is now, you didn't think it could get any worse than it is now. It was. Guys were just flying through the line untouched. You had to like do very specific things. You could barely be in any formations at all. You had to utilize motion blocking. We didn't have double teams. We didn't have line shifts. We didn't have ID the mic. Nothing. And Aldon Smith made life a living hell. Next on the list is Madden 16's Amari Cooper Journey Reward. This was a card that came out as a Journey Award. I believe it was auctionable, so it was fairly cheap if you didn't want to do the Journey, but he was all across the game. And he was so effective, because if you recall back in 16 era, we had budget cards, and he was a budget card. And like as effective as cards that were a few points higher. We'll get more budget cards here coming up. But Madden 16 was great for it. And Amari Cooper, almost like the peak of solo rewards in Madden in 16, was basically like that final peak before EA realized how important MUT was to the bottom line of their entire company. So they gave us these great rewards for a while, before they've been steadily downhill since then. Amari Cooper, memorable because of how good he was as a free solo reward, and we salute you for that, previous EA. Now we hate you. Madden 19's Rob Gronkowski House Rules Reward. Now we talk about solo rewards. Now we talk about House Rules Reward. Now we recently in Madden 23 got another House Rules Reward that was going for a lot. That's great, right? I love when EA gives us things auctionable, usable, incredibly good for grinding out their game. Rob Gronkowski, this was his first retirement in Madden 19, his House Rules card. You got him for grinding House Rules. And more rewards like that for grinding the game are absolutely needed. And this card was sick. Tall. You know, Gronk cards are never the fastest, but still incredibly, insanely effective at tight end in 19. Number 29 on the list is Madden 25's Johnny Manziel Golden Ticket. Johnny Manziel, say what you will about him, at least he was a good time. Okay, 25, right? QB rap. 23 is the most effective QB rap has been since then. I think QB rap's in the only in the Ravens playbook right now. But in 25, it was almost unstoppable. Manziel could run the ball super effectively, get outside, throw the ball, obviously, if you're a golden ticket. Just had one of the greatest names in Madden history, in I guess NFL / college football history, just the way he played the game. And I think it was a fun card, along with a fun guy. Number 28 is Madden 20's Michael Vick. Now, there's two cards that I want to point out here. The golden ticket because of the gunslinger glitch we had in 20, which I'll explain in a second, or the MUT 10 card, because he was just a blast. If you guys recall Madden 20, arcade, bing bong, super easy to run with a quarterback, crazy hard to grasp and get down. You know, these old Michael Vick cards, much like the 04 version of the legendary franchise Michael Vick. Now, this one's a little bit more balanced than that one was in regs, but the ability to run everywhere in the field, get away from all of the pursuers, throw dots and dimes across the body, down the field, wherever you wanted. It was a much harder year to pass the ball, especially late in the year when all the blitzes were completely developed and, you know, the EA gave up on balancing the game. Madden 20's Michael Vick, we had a gunslinger glitch. Now, it wasn't just on him, but any card, you could stack gunslinger on it later in the year when you're off for different ability buckets. And the thing about the gunslinger glitch was so cool that, like, it would slow down your Xboxes because the ball was moving so fast. Like, you'd drop frames. Like, it made it hard for the game to process how fast the ball was coming out of the hand, how fast the velocity of the ball was getting to the receiver. But it made passing much better and much more able to, like, actually get to the wide receiver than ever before in 20. Made the game much more fun. Now, stacking 4 gunslingers, you lost a little too many frames. So you kind of want to, like, bring it back a little bit. Want to go, like, maybe only 2, 3 tops. But yeah, stacking 4 gunslingers was probably some of the most fun passing and most fun I had in 20 all year. Too bad it took until many moons into 20 to make it that way. Number 27 is Madden 16's Megatron. It's Madden 16, the last year of over 100 stats, because EA didn't realize, like, hey, maybe we should confirm that they actually work over 100, and we haven't seen them since. So this golden ticket Megatron, you know, 16 was the year of the aggressive catches with the Odell catch, like, you know, pre-animated everybody into it. Megatron, you know, you wanted the height, you wanted the speed, so everything that you want out of a receiver and you want out of a DB, this Megatron had. Insane user, insane on both sides of the ball, super memorable as, like, you know, peak Madden fun, right? Because 16 was balanced around everything just being overpowered, right? Nanos were overpowered, aggressive catching was overpowered, users were overpowered. Now every time something gets overpowered, they nerf things to bring it back into regulation. Now 23, we've seen some movement away from that. I think is actually kind of cool. Like, I like when we have memorable cards like this. We don't see as many cards from, like, the Madden 21, Madden 22 range. We'll get to some, because they've tried to balance everything and nerf everything. In 23, they've kind of just thrown it more to the fun cycle, and I really think that's a good future for the game. I hope they continue to go with the fun factor of old Maddens and not necessarily everything's the same stats, everything's the same, barely incremental better that we've had in previous years. Madden 16, Calvin Johnson, the epitome of, hey, let's just throw something out and crazy and fun. Next on the list is Madden 16's Larry Fitzgerald's his 4th of July card. Now, maybe not as used as that Megatron or as powerful because so many other cards were this good back then. I just wanted to kind of highlight that whole 4th of July promo in 16. That's back when, like, we had Madden season, when late in the year, these cards were, like, just put out, like I said, over 100 stats. They were fun. They had, like, incredibly great art. That kind of stuff I think is just good for MUT to, like, make the game fun for, like, the last month before we go into the new game. game, really reward people that are grinding the game even through the summer. I think that just brings smiles to the faces of everybody in the community, that they're still dropping content, still dropping good content that late into the year. So number 25 on the list is Madden 15's Cam Chancellor. Now, this was called Ultimate Master. Basically, early in the year, we had MUT Master, and then later in the year, we had Ultimate Master. Now, they've kind of replaced a little bit of this. We no longer have this in 23, sadly. They've kind of replaced it, though, with like set champions masters, whatever they call them. Then we got like John Elway with the Team Diamond Masters. I kind of wish they'd bring back the old way of grinding for the cards to get these like top end dominating forces on either side of the ball. Madden 15 Legion of Boom was a good time, and it's something that I feel like has been missing, right? That big long grind for a card. I hope they don't make it like a stat grind. Remember when we had to go into games and throw 80,000 yards, passing yards, just throw streaks over and over, win so many games, get to do so many things? That was terrible game design. But that doesn't mean they can't make Ultimate Team Masters anymore that are great and well done. You know, win so many games online, like become an actual master of the game mode. Do that kind of thing going forward. I think that's just enjoyable. Cam Chancellor himself was an absolute beast. Madden 15, like I said, is an important tall year because of face catching and everything, and another great user that I would just grind for. Number 24 and number 23 are along the same veins. Madden 17's Jadeveon Clowney and Antonio Brown, the Chemistry Masters, right? Another solo grind, couple of cards that basically had all the chemistries. Now we see a little bit more with that, and I do kind of like and miss a little bit of the old chemistry system. We do have a little bit in that with Theme Team chems, but I really hope they go more in depth in chemistry in the future, right? I love theme teams. Don't get me wrong, I love that. But maybe more something like they had, remember back in the day, they had like 3-4, they had different chems like that. They had Run Stuffer, then like you could have an entire team where the Run Stuffer chem and gave people block shed, Pass Rusher chemistry gave people pass rush. And like back then we had like motivators and stuff to give us that. So it was like something that you had to like form your team around. So I kind of want more things. And like Antonio Brown and Clowney had all the chemistries so they can fit into every single squad. So it was just a neat reminder of the way it used to be. Now, I didn't think 17's chemistry system was great because it immediately disqualified so many cards from rosters because they came out with slightly the wrong chemistry. So I like now better than then, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from them and add a little bit more depth to the game now to have multiple different chemistries maybe going on in different cards. So that way it allows people to build out their squads in many different ways to maximize many different certain attributes. So there's things I feel like we can learn and things we can improve on, but I like this 17 kind of like as a concept overall to be in the game. But Antonio Brown and Jadeveon Clowney, great cards that you got just for grinding again for chemistry masters. Number 22 on the list is Madden 18's Paul Krause Ultimate Freeze. Now, this was a cheap card, but he had 91 zone. He was tall. We haven't had a Krause since then, I believe, since Madden 18. You can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But Madden 18, Paul Krause was great. He was an interception machine just like it was IRL. Please bring him back. Please bring back some reason to make his zone great. Make him what he was back then. Because 18 with 91 zone, they basically instant reacted. As soon as the ball got to like right here, guys in zone were breaking. Doesn't matter if they're facing to the ball or back. It was insanely overpowered against the pass, and Krause was a dominating figure early on in the year where we didn't have a ton of 91 zones at that point, at least at that price point. Number 21 on the list is Madden 20's Pat Tillman MUT Master. This card is one of, I don't know, dozens? I don't know. There hasn't been a ton that has been nerfed specifically like this. Pat Tillman was earned early in the year, and for a few beautiful weeks, against the Madden 20 run meta that had already taken over, he was a one-man wrecking crew. He had Enforcer that you could add to him, and nobody else had it for a while. And at least initially, if you clicked off and let Enforcer hit the running back or wide receiver or whoever, it caused the fumble like 75% of the time. It was crazy powerful. It was the lone defense we had against the run game in 20. Well, they nerfed it, right? They got that down. Enforcer still caused some fumbles. It was still like the only counter to guys that had Freight Train active. I think there was only one Freight Train active the whole year, if I recall. It was Dickerson. Pat Tillman and Enforcer was the only way to stop the run, really, because like the run, even without Freight Train, the run still was insanely overpowered. Spins, jukes, breaking tackles themselves. You guys probably saw in the Dickerson video, all that craziness. Pat Tillman put an end to that. Sadly, he never stayed as effective as he was those first few weeks that people unlocked him before he got nerfed, but it was a good ride while we had it. Number 20 on the list is Madden 18's Harold Carmichael. He was a legend. He was a guy that we've been asking for a couple years because if you guys recall, like all those face catching, tall catching games, 17 was a swerve year. It wasn't as animation based as 16, but Harold Carmichael came out 6'8". It wasn't a great year for tall guys. Currently, 23 is a tall guy year. We got Carmichael, who's a demon, but 18 was the first introduction of Carmichael to the game. And I remember because I didn't ask him for him for a while, because I'm like, you know what? Let's just make the game awful. And they did it. And it was great. Sadly, he wasn't like the fastest, so he wasn't like a super meta choice, but I think he was, you know, pretty well balanced. I like Carmichael cards that are tall, but maybe not breaking the speed record. I think that's probably where Carmichael needs to be in the pantheon of MUT cards. Number 19 on the list is a Madden 19 card. Lawrence Taylor's Harvest card from Thanksgiving. Now, Lawrence Taylor cards oftentimes do not play exactly like Lawrence Taylor did IRL, because Lawrence Taylor IRL was a force of nature, right? Unblockable. He was, you know, greatest defensive player of all time is what many people say. It's hard to really see that on the field many years because of how they tune the pass rush, how they tune the run defense, you know, getting locked in animations and stuff, because you're also going against some of the greatest tackles of all time. So what Ultimate Team sometimes does is bring out cards that are just so significantly better than other cards that they play like they did IRL, right? Even though he's beating Joe Thomas consistently, which wouldn't happen, but it would happen, IRL, Lawrence Taylor's Harvest card actually played like Lawrence Taylor's card would IRL. Like, you couldn't even run his way. He was a demon on the pass rush. You had to get the ball out fast on like a 4-man, which is so rare for Madden. So that's why it was so memorable, because he actually played like he did IRL in the game. And I'm not sure we've had a Lawrence Taylor since that card or previous to that card that actually played like Lawrence Taylor did for that amount of time, that Harvest card. All right, number 18 on the list is Madden 16's Zadarius Smith, his Schefter star. 16, like I said, back when we had budget cards, they killed him off in 17 going forward. Zadarius Smith was a low-end card that you could combine two of them, and he went up to, like, I feel like, was it high 80s? But he played like a 95, because people always like, oh, at left end he's an 88, but at right end he's like a 95. It was something to go with the logarithm they had for overalls. But anyways, you go against people with his card all across the D line, and he'd be insanely effective. So he was an encapsulation of that time where we had budget cards, where we had unique promos where you can combine cards to give them different chemistries, but he was so good and so cheap and so effective. People just put them all on the D-line. After 16, they also got rid of the ability for us to put guys with the same name. Prior to this, we could have, like, you know, different Zadarius Smith cards on the field. You couldn't do the same one over and over, but you could do different Zadarius Smiths, which I thought was really cool. They kind of got rid of that. Number 17 on the list is Madden 18's Mean Joe Green Super Bowl. Madden 18, if you recall, was a very chemistry-based year where you had to get specific chemistries fit them. Mean Joe Green got the best chemistry. Mean Joe Green got the best ability to secure tackler. Madden 18 was an insane year for broken tackles, spins, jukes, everything. Mean Joe Green had it. He played insanely well. He was very expensive. The Super Bowl card, I believe, like 1 million coins or something, but it is rare. And this is why his card makes the list. It is rare for a D lineman to actually matter in Madden in its history. Outside of, like, you know, the guys with specific abilities like inside stuff in years here that like actually play against inside run. Pass rushing, this was back when stats mattered a little bit more. Obviously, you know, they've been overshadowed by abilities, but Mean Joe Green just played effective, right? And Mean Joe Green and kind of the thinner D lines is also kind of like weaned out. They've made weight way important to a lot of these guys. So Mean Joe Green's Madden 18 card was exception to what we've seen with D lines overall. Number 16 on the list is Madden 16's Night Train Lane, the Black Friday card that came around and swept us off our feet. Now, prior to this, there was no Black Friday promo. So they dropped a new promo that had insane deals, crazy cards. And this Night Train Lane card was almost endgame with how good it was. It was one of the fastest cards in the game. It had insane block shed, everything. Like, he was Night Train, right? If they allowed Night Train neck times, this card would have been throwing it. A chase card, it was everything you wanted out of a corner. It was cool that they brought a brand new promo that we didn't expect. Something that we haven't seen a lot in MUTs are like surprises and things they haven't done before. So seeing 16 of them drop it right after the Thanksgiving promo too, where we didn't expect anything, and then they just dropped it on the table, crashed the entire market too. We don't see market crashes that often like this anymore, generally due to training. This Black Friday Night Train Lane came out and just absolutely took the community by storm. Number 15 on the list. Maybe this is a little bit too low, but I'm going to go Madden 19's Ryan Shazier, MUT Master. If you guys watched my video on him, he completely changed the entire position after how dominant this card was, picking balls off so far behind it. I'm not going to go too much more into the Shaz. Go watch that video right now. Number 14 on the list is Madden 16's Odell Beckham Jr., his MUT Master card. Maybe I need to do a video specifically on this card alone and what his IRL catch did to Madden for 16 and the effect that it hit on for Madden for years. But Odell Beckham Jr. card, faster than everybody out there, better catching, literally couldn't defend it outside of just double teaming him the whole game. Really hard to get to, which is something that we haven't seen for like MUT Master cards for years. That's all I got to say about Odell for now. Number 13 on the list is Madden 15's Julius Peppers Football Outsiders card. Back when our linebackers could jump, Peppers got like an left outside linebacker. I believe he's playing for the Packers, and they put him at left outside linebacker. You can put him at middle linebacker, and you just lurked. All you had to do was stand next to the line of scrimmage at 6'7" and pick balls off. The way the trajectory was, you just had to get in front of a guy throwing a post pattern, and it was yours. It was absurd how good this Julius Peppers card was. Number 12 on the list was Madden 18's Bo Jackson, his Zero Chill card. This was memorable because of how many people, like especially in the comp scene, hated it. This Bo Jackson got a card at every single position in Zero Chill. He had a card like all offensive line positions. Madden 18, you saw a lot of tosses. They'd have like Bo Jackson at right guard, and then he'd lead the toss and be able to get blocks out there. People loved that. He was like the best tight end in the game, best halfback in the game, best lineman, best defender. It was wild, the amount of Bo Jackson we saw out there, and it was memorable, even though it was probably one of the most controversial, highly like debated cards in Madden's existence. I think that alone makes it super memorable for me. They really haven't done much like that since this. I'd like to see it again. I don't know. It's been 5 years. Let's do it again. Let's run it back for 24. Number 11 is Madden 15's Jack Ham. And you're like, oh, Steeler Ultimate Legend. He was maybe a little bit of biased here. I remember Jack Ham because the Madden 15 play rec was huge. It kind of broke play rec after 16. They kind of remaneuvered the system, and they went to run fits too. I think run fits went in 17, and that's kind of when play rec got massacred a little bit. Jack Ham, I remember I did a review on him, and I didn't have to use many games because he was literally involved in every single play because his play rec was that high. He like knew what the offense was gonna do. Linebackers also recall in 15, they could jump, like we just talked about Peppers. They were usable. They were great in the run. They actually like weren't in concrete shoes. Their pursuit was excellent. So Madden 15, Jack Ham absolutely makes this list because that's when linebackers were linebackers and you didn't have to use them for them to play effectively. They actually played. It's crazy how much better some of these games back in the day played as far as intelligence. You're like, oh, games now are way better coding. There's way more lines of codes. But no, go look at like some of the AI and like old Halos and like, oh my God, these grunts that are alone would retreat on you. And now like the grunts just kind of stay there in a lot of games, like just keep shooting at you like, oh, that's kind of boring. Same thing with like 15, like pursuit, play rec actually mattered. Number 10 on my list is Madden 16's Derrick Henry. He's had a lot of great cards over the years as far as a running back trucking over dudes. Madden 22, or was it 21, where weight really mattered, especially next gen 21. I'm gonna go Madden 16 because weight did matter. Like I've talked about, it was a big passing year, aggressive catch with nanos and stuff. But problem made the finals of Madden 16 running fullback dive with Derrick Henry running dive at his weight, being able to truck over guys. It was exactly what Derrick Henry was IRL. It was beautiful. We've had Derrick Henrys effective over the years, and maybe you could have subbed in many other Derrick Henrys in this spot instead of 16. But I wanted to highlight something that was memorable for me because it was really Derrick Henry's like coming on the scene party for me to what he ended up being and the dominating of MUT and Madden for the next few years, and NFL really, that we saw from him. Number 9 on the list is Madden 20's Randy Moss. This was an NFL 100 card. He started the entire game with an X Factor active basically guaranteed you 60 yards immediately unless he got like triple covered. He was absurd. Like even triple covered, he catch it in it. Randy Moss's Madden 20 card was built different, right? Like I said, it's a hard year to pass the ball. You can either get it right away, which people expected. People expect you to throw Randy Moss right away. That was the meta. So sometimes you'd save him to like the end of the first half, and then you chuck it up to him then because they weren't expecting you at that moment to hit him with a Hail Mary. They weren't really as prepared for it as they'd expected right away. So they're like, oh, they don't have Randy Moss. They haven't used him the whole game. Boom, you bring him out and get 6 points immediately. So in a game that was very defensive focused, the ability to basically get a touchdown on one drive was insanely effective. Obviously, IRL getting an instant touchdown is insanely effective. And in a game that's much shorter, there you go. Number 8 on the list is Madden 17's Cam Newton's draft card. Now, Madden 17 was a nickel blitz year. It was awful. The meta was stagnant. One of the worst Maddens ever made. Cam Newton's draft card. This was prior to like anchored extender, agile extender. Basically, the only way I was able to throw the ball out of formations not named bunch. And even at 17 by the end of the year, nickel blitz was unblockable, literally unblockable. We didn't have ID, we didn't have shift the line, etc. And Cam Newton, basically my entire offense was just take a hit and then throw the ball after I shed the tackle. That was great until maybe some secure tacklers came along that hit the cornerback spot. But like Cam Newton, for a brief shining moment there when the meta was completely set on nickel blitz or dollar blitz, where you couldn't block him off the edge, Cam Newton, he was giving us a brief respite from the degeneracy that was online Madden and trying to play offense in 17. Number 7 on the list is Madden 23's Quad Father, AJ Dillon. He was the AKA card. Now, a lot of cards after Dillon ended up getting the same ability or similar-ish ability. AJ Dillon, a lot like a card that's going to be on this list here in a few, broke every first tackle. Now, 23 was a little bit easier to stop the run than in previous years, aka Madden 20. We keep talking about that year. Quad Father, though, had the automatic break. It just ended up breaking a lot of psyches. He ended up changing defenses. It got a lot of guys out of Dollar because Dollar was very effective against the run. It still is. The issue with Dollar is usually you can only deliver one man to the ball. So if you had a running back that auto shedded the first tackle, which frequently against most other running backs would auto tackle no matter like who your safety at linebacker was or corner, because the game's busted and bad, that like 190-pound corners are easily stopping like 230-pound running backs. So Quad Father basically took Dollar defense and kind of crapped on it, which is good for the balance of the game. The issue is it also crapped on every other defense in the game. If you tried to play it out of anything else, unless you had secure tacklers, you were in for a terrible time. So a lot of defenses had to be shifted due to this overpoweredness. So I can't think that I will forget this card, even though maybe right now he's not the best card in the game. Obviously, cards that come out after him, Flash, other AKA cards with the same ability. I think Quad Father being the first one, completely shocking the scene that they do this on a running back again after we told them how bad 20 was. It's memorable. EA's like, you know what? Let's just do overpowered X Factors as abilities now, or always on X Factors. Number 6 on the list is Madden 13's Leon Sandcastle. Now they finally brought him back in Madden 23. Leon Sandcastle, I think it's 10 years since we saw him in the game. You know, they had commercials for Leon. I just think it's overall quite memorable. The highest on the list before Madden 15 in my time for me. Leon Sandcastle. Even though I never used him, I used him in 23. I know of him. I know of the commercials. And I've heard he was absolutely bonkers in 13 too. Number 5 is Madden 18's Barry Sanders, his Thanksgiving card. Spins spun out entire defenses. Jukes were incredibly effective. Trucks were really good. And that's why maybe Madden 18's Bo Jackson could have made this list too, because he came out at Christmas time. He could also truck over people. But the fact that entire defenses couldn't stop Barry Sanders' spin because they all got pre-canned animations, EA had to invent an ability, unfakeable, just to stop Barry Sanders a little bit. They ended up putting secure tackler on everybody. So that way we ended up playing two-hand touch. As long as I touched you, you were going down in Madden 18. It was a terrible balancing decision. They eventually ended up nerfing the spin a little bit. Instead of trying to like rebalance the defensive side, they nerfed it. But Barry Sanders from Thanksgiving on until the nerf, he was a demon, a menace, somebody you didn't want to see in your opponent's backfield. Overall, he was the harbinger of other running backs to come in that year that also made you pull your hair out. Number 4 on my list is Madden 23's Donald Parham, the highest Madden 23 card I got on the list. The headliners card that came out at the beginning of the year. Donald Parham. Tall, hasn't got a lot of receptions IRL. And at the start of the game, when they came out with this headliners card, he was only 2 speeds slower than Tyreek Hill. So at tight end, position you generally don't have the fastest guys at, you'd have almost the fastest player on the field. And Madden 23 was very much a height-based year, especially with high points. Even safeties at linebacker where they could jump would not be able to get up and stop these high point passes. At the beginning of the year, we didn't have knockouts. We didn't have pick artists everywhere like we have now. This is why I always make fun of people that say, oh, this card's golden ticket's gonna be better. No, by that time, we're gonna have things to defend it, right? This card had deep out elite, the best catching ability in the entire game, stock day one, and people thought a golden ticket card was gonna be more powerful than that. Never the case, right? This card was completely imbalanced. He was people's entire offense early in the year. It was so hard to stop this. You had to you had to double team, you had to hope they just didn't screw you over on animations. Sometimes you just randomly break a few tackles and get a touchdown. Parim was everything bad with Madden. It was not football at that point. It was just a high point simulator. There was no give and take. So we ended up getting more knockouts, zone, man, pick artists. Thankfully, it came late and the damage had already been done. But luckily, our suffering had been ended, and we started to be able to work out how to stop him with the knockouts, with the pick artists. They ended up nerfing high points too from this card. So early on, Parim, pre-balancing updates, one of the most powerful cards of all time in Madden history, which is rare that we get those in later Maddens. Talk about later Maddens and most overpowered card. We haven't heard a lot of Madden 22 cards on the list because there really hasn't been a whole lot of memorable cards in Madden 21, Madden 22, because they haven't gone too overpowered with it. But there was one ability in Madden 22 that reigned above all others. It was Escape Artist. Derrick Henry's out of position quarterback card. They gave him the best release in the game, Slinger 1, so you can dominate from the pocket. You could also just outrun literally the entire defense with the Escape Artist. You just let a defensive end go free and then just run around them because the animation they were locked into when they got free just stopped them from being able to catch you because Escape Artist was just that bursty and that fast, and the acceleration was insane. They ended up nerfing Escape Artist a few times through the year, made it more AP. I think Escape Artist on Scramble Quarterback, it was 1 AP or 2 AP right away. They ended up getting up to 15 AP by the end of the year because of how powerful it was, and people were still running it. So Derrick Henry's card, when he came out, Madden 22, the out of position card, took over online play. It took a little bit. People thought other card like Russell Wilson's might have been better, but no. Best release, didn't fumble, broke tackles. Derrick Henry at quarterback was a demon in 22. It was awful. He threw across his body dots. Derrick Henry made Madden 22. Escape Artist made Madden 22 a terrible game. We're so close many of these years to a good game, but it's crazy how just a few things each year has ruined it. Luckily in 22, we also had tight end delay fades patched out around December-ish, if I recall correctly. Somewhere in there, we got tight end delay fades, which were the demon of 21, gone. So that helped it, but still, how powerful Escape Artist was, the same PA rollout plays that we used with this tight end delay fades were still as effective as they were late in the year because of how effective Escape Artist was. Entire defenses were formed and the metas were set around it, and we still barely were able to contain it. Number 2 on my list of most memorable cards of all time is Madden 20's Eric Dickerson, NFL 100. Check out my video on him. He completely warped that game, made it way worse. I saw things in that game I didn't think were possible. He rose from the grave of being tackled to go score touchdowns. Watch my video on him for more on that Dickerson. But the number 1 most memorable card of all time is Madden 16's Dree Archer. It was a silver card. A silver card, Dree Archer. And sure, maybe it wasn't as powerful as Eric Dickerson's NFL 100 card, Parim's headliners, but it was an epitome of the old Maddens of cards that came out and launched as they were with stats IRL. We had over 100 stats, so the team wasn't as worried about that. More of the mental stats got improved through the year, back when mental stats mattered more. Play rec, pursuit, like you heard me wax on about with Jack Ham. So these 16 cards, highly effective, but it's hard to sell packs when silvers are this effective. Now, Dree Archer wasn't without his downside, right? He had low carrying, so if you hit him good in the open field with Patrick Willis, he would fumble. But in 16, quick toss out of strong close was a very effective play. So if you fumbled, you were running next to the sidelines anyway, so you just fumble out of bounds. Not a big deal. But Dree Archer, having a silver card, a weapon in your quiver, right? An arrow that you could use to effectively get to the edge, to outflank your opponent. Ensure there were counters, there were things you could do against it, but it was very effective and it was very fun. It was cool seeing a silver card play against these high-end elites and do well. It was always rooting for the underdog. It was just a different time in Madden where we had these budget cards. I think previous years We had quarterbacks that were silver because they were fast, and like Madden 25, they were able to get out and make a lot of people pay because they weren't able to stop this fast quarterback. So how much should speed matter on the field? Because Dre Archer, even though he had what, second best 40 time ever behind Chris Johnson, was just not that great in the NFL. But he was great in Madden. And I think those kind of stories are something lost upon us, where all the new cards have much better speed than the old cards, right? Like, you know, players that weren't fast IRL are getting faster cards than players that were fast. Like Tyreek Hill has been slower than Larry Fitzgerald in this year's game. Now, you can argue, hey, Larry Fitzgerald wasn't usable before because he didn't have high speed, and I get it. That's a very valid argument, but I wish other things. Now with ability-based gameplay, you can do things where, like, say Tom Brady is more effective than Michael Vick because of the ability-based gameplay. So eventually maybe we'll get there where we can go back to maybe guys like Dre Archer being there and having downsides, having things that, like, yeah, you can utilize the speed for some plays, but you can't just set them out there all the time because, yeah, there is a reason why you have Larry Fitzgerald, because he can catch in traffic, because he can get open on route running, whereas if you're pure speed, you won't fool anybody on routes. You will fumble the ball. So hopefully Madden eventually gets to that kind of gameplay where we can bring back silver cards that start with 95 speed. We get over 100 stats through the year. So that way it's not as big a deal. We're not capped at 99 like we have been the last, 8 years since Madden 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 7 years. I can math. Hopefully eventually we get back to this here, but it's just life, man. It's old. It's so long ago. It was fun. So maybe someday we'll get our Dre Archer back. And I hope if they ever do bring Dre Archer back again, they actually give him a silver card. So here's the list overall from 50 to 1. Let me know where you guys think I messed up, where you guys think I could get some better cards on the list. That's it. Maybe next year or in future years, 5 years from now when I do this list again, I'll have that Gronkowski from 23. I'll maybe have some more of the other cards that I kind of spoke on that I didn't make the list. Number 50 from Tressway, all the way up to another meme card, Dre Archer at number 1. But man, those were the days, my friend. I wish they'd never end. Bye.